Today we're going to talk about, because it's the upcoming event in the Muslim calendar, is the Hajj. We're going to talk about what that means for us, for those who are going to Hajj and for those who are not going to Hajj, and just a reflection on what benefits we can take from that in the year coming ahead. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 36, إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ 12 شَهْرًا فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ. But verily, now when Allah says very in the Quran, the general rule is that there's doubt in the mind of the believer or the person listening, or that this is something that maybe people don't know to be significant. So for example, if I come to you and I say, my name's Idris, and then you look at me and say, you've got blonde hair, not blonde hair, brown eyes, blue eyes, you look like a goddard to me. Your name's probably, Timothy or something. Stop trying to that's cultural appropriation, trying to be a Muslim. And then, so now, I know there's doubt in the mind of the listener. So I say, no, I am Idris. So then I use stress, don't I? Stress the tone. So in English, generally, if we want to stress something, we use tone. And sometimes we can, there's a pudding right in front of me. I go to some dessert place, I say, that was really good. You may use a few words just to stress something. That's how we stress, isn't it, in language? Now Allah, we use tone, obviously reciting of the Quran, but also we use these devices. And so we always know that if there is some sort of importance that maybe people are absent-minded about, or they may have doubt, Allah stresses it. And here the stress is on the number of months that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has demarcated in the year. Why was this important? Because in the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Arabs, what did they used to do? They used to fiddle around with the months. And so there was doubts when months would fall and what was the correct time for it to fall. And so Allah is saying that verily the months, according to Allah, are 12. This is ordained in the Book of Allah. Now, Book of Allah, this could mean scripture, or this could mean, obviously, in the preserved tablet, or it could mean, which is a similar meaning, in the law of Allah or the decree of Allah. Kitab can mean many, many things in Arabic. When was this? When did Allah say there were 12 months? He said, يَوْمَ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, that the day that He created the heavens and the earth. Allah has put an order in the universe. And an order is a proof of the existence of God. Because if there is some order, when we see order, we realize that there must be someone who's devising this order, isn't there? If I walk into the room, into Talha's room, and it's tidy, I think, oh, maybe Talha's tidied his room. I'm not thinking, it all fell into place. You walk into a place and it's all neat and it's all tidy, you realize there must be someone behind this. So that Allah has divided things in a specific order and they follow a pattern shows us that there's intelligent design behind these things. And not only that, what does it teach us? It teaches that we need to seek out Allah's design in the creation to understand how we need to fall in with that system. So, obviously, if we eat unhealthily, we can get away with it up to maybe to the age of 30, and then what starts to happen? You can't see your feet anymore. What happened when I was 20? I could binge on a whole bit, a pack of biscuits. Now I do it, there's repercussions. Now you realise you've got to fit in with a system. Allah, all those years before were mercy. The next, now, it's going to be justice. So the biscuits they will have their impact. You realise you've got to fit in. In order for me to be healthy, I have to have a regular system in my life. It's not just I do it once or twice in the year. I've got to do something regular. Allah is constantly asking us to meditate upon this system that He's placed in so that we fall in line with this system. And when we fall in line with Allah's system, like the rest of creation does, whilst we have free choice whether we wish to fall in line with that system or not, When we do fall in line with Allah's system and we flow with the rest, things start to work out for us. What do we say? We say, I feel like I'm in a flow state, because everything just seems to be going right. Whilst if we don't fall in flow with things, things start to become havoc and chaotic in our life. So Allah has told us there's 12. Now what's so amazing about this verse is, he says 12 verses, 12 months, and then he says, Minha arba'atun hurum. That from amongst those 12 months are 4 that are sacred, that are special, you need to give extra focus to. What were those months? What were the sacred months according to the Arabs? Even before Islam, they were Rajab, let's go in order though, the logical order. So do you know these are the months of Islam? Do you know your use of Islam, son? So we've got obviously Muharram, haven't we, starting, but, and you're right actually, yeah. But the way I want to look at it is the significance of the end of the year, because so we've got Rajab, and then the next sacred month is Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, then Muharram, so they're consecutive, whilst Rajab is by itself. And the reason for that was because the Arabs traditionally used to perform Umrah in Rajab before Islam. And then the other months, Dhul Qa'dah was the means to prepare for Hajj and travel to Hajj. Dhul Hijjah was the month they perform Hajj, and Muharram was the month that they return. So these were very sacred months that people had to honour, because so that people could actually perform these pilgrimages throughout the year. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. Allah says that is the upright religion. Qayyim means to be straight and in order. So this is the order that He wishes us to follow. فَلَا تَظْلِمُوا فِيهِنَّ أَنفُسَكُمْ. So don't wrong yourselves in it. Now what's amazing about this verse, he says there's 12 months and they're divided, and then he says 4 of them are sacred. 4 out of 12 is, this can give 4, 8, no, I've got my maths wrong actually on that one. But what is interesting here is that we demarcate even in the Gregorian calendar, we demarcate the year of those 12 months into how many? 4, don't we? So can you imagine that? We did this when we had the iftar in Ramadan. Is that you demarcate those 12 into 4, and each quarter, how many are you going to have? Oh, you know the answer to that. 3. So you've got 4 quarters to the 12. Every society generally did that. And that demarcates the 4, what? Seasons of the year. Now Allah says in this is Surah 9, verse 36. Let's have I get my maths right on this one. 9, 18, 24, 27, thank you. Yeah. And the last one, 36. So Allah's talking about the months of the year. He's talking about the 4 sacred months, but there's an allusion to that the year is divided into 4 as well. Right in the middle of that, which is amazing, because you think the Prophet ﷺ revealed the Quran over a number of different periods. How could you have matched those? But you'll see this numerical system. So it's as if you're seeing the system in the Quran just as you see the system in the year. Does that make sense? And so that's what Allah wants us to do. That is the means to reach realization of God, is by sitting and pondering upon the systems in play in nature. Then the Prophet ﷺ did something really amazing, because the Arabs used to play around with the year. They wanted to fight sometimes in the sacred months because there was a bit of a feud going on. So they say, maybe everyone will forget it's Muharram this year. Let's just move Muharram to the side and put Safar in there. And they used to play around with the system. But the problem, what happened was, it wrecked the whole, it went out of equilibrium. So again, if you can imagine a clock, we've got a clock back there with the 12 points. It's like it's gone out of whack. So we're looking at our time and saying it says 9:06 there, and that says 9:08. It's gone out of whack, because if you play around with it, it's going to continue to cause problems, isn't it? And that's what happened with the Arabs. They played around with their system, their dating systems, throughout the year, and it became completely out of whack. People didn't even know when Hajj was anymore. Has it really fallen in Hajj or not? So when the Prophet ﷺ performed his Hajj, he stood at Arafat, the mount, just in front of the mount, right on Arafat, 9th of Dhul Hijjah, and said, today, one of the most profound and important speeches in history, the address at his Hajj of departure. He says, this is a hadith related in Bukhari, ألا إن الزمان قد استدار كهيئته يوم خلق الله السماوات والأرض. Is it, nay, most definitely, that time has come back in full circle like it did the day Allah created the heavens and earth. And so what he's saying is that, because everyone's confused about, is this really the day of the, like we even ask that question every year, don't we? Is it really the ninth or not? Because timing is really important. And so the Prophet ﷺ is saying it's as if everything's come into sync again. And with the Prophet ﷺ standing at that point, it's amazing if you think about it. There's this one person who has reset time so it's in sync with the day it was created. And so there's so much symbolism there. That's to say that the Prophet ﷺ's reset morals and character. He's reset truth so we know what truth is. He's reset the Hajj so people know when to do Hajj. And he's reset with this religion so everyone will know what halal is and what haram is, what truth is and what falsehood is. And now that's the bar to measure things by. And so, honestly, that day is with the speech the Prophet ﷺ came and that place where he is. This is the day where people have moved from Mecca. Because the rites of Hajj, the significance of it is what? We're all travelling. And we go to perform our Hajj or our Umrah, but specifically Hajj because it's specific dates, isn't it? And we're going towards the Kaaba. What does the Kaaba signify? The centre of known creation. Because there's a hadith that narrates that when the earth was, creation was water, wasn't it? And then it emerged the first piece of land, and that's exactly where the Kaaba is. So for us as Muslims, symbolically, it's the centre. So when we go to perform Hajj, it's as if we're going to the core of the creation, the core of our being, of who we are, and our focus as well. Because if you want to focus, you need to focus on the core of matters. And so we go to the Kaaba, and it's like we're resetting ourselves. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever goes and performs Hajj and doesn't perform any lewd acts, or doesn't perform any corrupt things, he will go back as if it's a day that his mother gave birth to him. It's a reset. It's like a biohack, as they call in this day and age. You know, all these terms. You're spiritually, mentally and physically resetting and biohacking your whole bioorganism and with new opportunities. You're a complete detox. So we detox in Ramadan. Now the ultimate detox is connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we go to the Kaaba and it's like a resetting. But then what do? Then we head out to Arafat. And Arafat is outside of the Haram. So Mina and Muzdalifah, these are still within the Haram, the sacred area. But when we go out to Arafat, it's as if we go out, it's as if we find, this was so amazing, it's as if we find our core and then we go out of our core, our centre, again, so that we can re-find our core. Because life, you need to find what's right, and then what happens in our life? We find our centre, what's right, and then we drift every so often, don't we? We go off. But because we knew what the centre was at the beginning, we know where to come back. So, for example, if we start swaying, can you find your centre? We do it intuitively, don't we? We find our balance, where we feel balanced. And then we can come off it, and we feel this little like, oh, I'll get off centre here. And then we do it. We can do that consciously, or we do it, our body does it even without us knowing, like, you know, when you're about to fall over, suddenly, oof, you know, even without you controlling it, your body recenters you. When we go and perform Hajj, we connect to our centre and then come out so that we can do the ultimate purification. Because the day of Arafat is what? There's no day in the whole of the 12 months of the year where the people are not forgiven more on that day. After Ramadan, what is it? Every day of Ramadan, what's the forgiveness? It's 30,000 if I remember it. What's the hadith? Yeah, 60,000. So 60,000 every day in Ramadan. And then on Eid, 30 times that. That's a lot. But on the day of Arafah, Allah says, I forgive people unlike any other day in the year. Even like on the other days in Ramadan, they say everyone's forgiven except for he who has rancor in his heart for another Muslim or something. Or, you'll have these exceptions. On the day of Arafah, it says everyone who has a mustard seed of faith is forgiven on that day. So this is the ultimate day, in the ultimate place. So it's amazing. Everything links time, place, and people, because Allah has chosen those people. These are the special people chosen for that day, and they're ambassadors on that day, making dua for all their communities. And that's why, when we're here, even if we don't perform the Hajj, what do we do on the Fajr of the 9th of Arafah, on the day of Arafah? What do? We do our takbirs, don't we? Because it's as if we even imagine it in the old days. They didn't even have televisions to connect. We're connecting spiritually. They're performing their takbirs, we're connecting with them. We want that share. And then what do we do on that day of Arafah? So we can do something. We fast, don't we? We fast so we can feel a connection that we're with them. So it's amazing. And then what do? People get confused about this ruling. If we are to slaughter our animal ourselves, it's recommended, it's not obligatory, that you don't cut your nails, even if you're not performing Hajj. So it's as if, and it's recommended on those 10 days as well, for people that aren't performing Hajj, to fast those days as well. As soon as Dhul Hijjah comes in. So it's as if we're spiritually aligning ourselves with those people that are there at the centre. And that's what we're doing every day anyway, when we pray and connect ourselves to the Kaaba. We're trying to find our centre. And that's why we're saying, Ihdina siratan mustaqim. Guide me to the straight path. Guide me back to the centre. It's constant realignment. And that's why I translate Tawbah. Tawbah, we translate Tawbah as what? Usually repentance, don't we? But it's not, doesn't mean that literally. It's not, that's right, it's not wrong. But it's actually returning, it means. I like to translate it as reorienting. Because Tawbah is you're going away from God and then you realise, hang on a minute, I think I'm going a bit astray now. So you realign yourself back. That's what Tawbah is. And so all our religion is about realigning and reorienting ourselves back to our centre. Physically, it's amazing. We do it in our prayer, we're doing it physically, we're aligning ourselves. Non-Muslims, Muslims ask this question. They say, why do you pray to that Kaaba? What, is Allah in there? Or something. No, it's significant of finding a centre. So, because we need something to focus on. And so we need a physical connection to that. We need a mental state of that, so you feel that if you're not at the Kaaba, you're trying to bring to mind it as if you're aligning yourself with it. And we do that with our compass. We do that, we orient with the nature around us, we're doing that. Where's the Kaaba? There's the sun, it sets in the west, so there's east, there's west. I'm doing Qibla, I just look at the town, the flats. That's my orienting position. Those high-rise flats, I know where I'm going. That's basically the direction of the Kaaba and the flats. So we look at the nature to orient, then we align ourselves, then we sense as if we're connecting to the Kaaba, then Allahu Akbar. So that's physical, spiritual, as mental, and spiritually we're orienting. And and we have to integrate those three in order to feel whole: body, mind, and spirit. It's amazing. And then on the last year, at the end of the year, Dhul Hijjah, the last year, it's as if we do an ultimate focusing on our centre for the ultimate opportunity to reset our whole biology, our whole mentality, our whole spirituality. And if we're not there, at least people making dua for us for that to happen. And if we can't be there, that when they return, we connect with them so that we can get something essence of that. We're constantly doing that. And what's so phenomenal about the Muslim calendar is every calendar is like pagan calendars were focused around the 4 seasons. So they were focused on a circular mindset. Like if you think of all the, most pagan festivals are based around the what do you call it? The solstices. You know, the summer solstice and the winter solstice. When's the winter solstice? December 20th or 21st, 22nd or 23rd. So the Christians came along, realised people were celebrating at that point, and they put the Christmas there. Because they realised people, like, this was significant, because it's the lowest point of the sun. You know, when the sun's going up, it's the lowest point it will be to the earth. And obviously, then after that, days are going to get longer for us. So it's symbolic of like life's coming. And the birth of Jesus, that's the perfect, you can see the logic. Then, so we've got the winter solstice, and then we've got the summer solstice. When's the summer solstice? To the best of my knowledge, it's June 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. This is midsummer, or what they call, I've forgotten the pagan terms they use. But this is what things happen here. You've got to think about it. This is where basically everyone feels alive, because the sun's it's the longest day, isn't it, of the year? The sun's at its peak. All the music festivals are around this period. Yeah. All the sporting events are around this period. Because traditionally that's when the pagans used to do these things. They were around those dates. Because you've got long days, so people can actually, enjoy the weather, and they can be entertained, or they can engage in these things. So, and you'll see that the Christian calendar, even the Jewish calendar that does move around, the Christian calendar moves around with Easter. It's a different day each year, isn't it? But generally it's fixed within 2 months. I think it's March and April, isn't it? It shifts between March and April. The Jewish ones, all again, even though they shift, they're restricted in one of these seasons. And then you've got the solstices, and then you've got the equinoxes. What the equinox is where you've got the spring equinox, and you've got the autumn, and that's when days are the most equal. The day and the night are equal. So pagans used to have their festivals around these periods, and most 99% of all cultures and traditions have some sort of celebrations around those, because they're significant for harvest. When people are rural people, I don't know about in Bengali culture historically, did they celebrate the harvests and stuff like that, and when the yields came and stuff, like every culture had that. Islam, what's amazing about Islam, is one of the only cultures that says life's circular, yes. If you think about the seasons, they're circular, aren't they? They come and they go, and they're the same throughout the year. But Islam has its months shift throughout them. It's symbolic to say as if you're not locked in the fate of time. Rather, you have autonomy to change things. And so the Islamic calendar shifts through to say you can transcend time. It's amazing if you think about it. No other culture has this. I think this is one of the most amazing proofs of this religion, that it's got the truth. It's true. Because it's like basically does things completely counterintuitive to other cultures. What the other amazing thing about this is how it goes against the system of, not that it goes against nature, but it's trying to get us to transcend, is every culture has, in their spiritual tradition, has this sense of doing tawaf. Like Christians, they used to go round the cathedrals, and they used to circumambulate, if I pronounce that correctly, around it. You'll see every culture had this sense of going around something. Even animals do this. Do you know there's this fish called the kingfish, I think it's West Africa. It leaves the sea and swims to a river once a year. They circle one another in a circle in this one area of the river, and then go back to the sea. They do a tawaf once a year. It's amazing. There's these monkeys that they gather these rocks. They walk up to this specific tree and throw rocks at it. And the zoologists have no idea why they do this. They can't think of any logical reason. They throw these stones at this rock and go mad at it, like some of the Hajjaj, the pilgrims, and then they go back. So it's as if Allah gives us these signs as if there's this innate nature for us to perform pilgrim rites. But, he says, in nature and other cultures, No other culture, there's one exclusive, some Tibetan cultures they do this, but every other culture doesn't. They do their circumambulation clockwise. Muslims, what do we do our circumambulation? Our going around, we do it anti-clockwise. It's as if we're resetting time. Again. Not only that, what's amazing about this is if you look at the rites of Umrah, what do? We walk to the Kaaba, don't we? And then we perform tawaf. What's the next thing we do? We pray behind the maqam of Ibrahim. Then what do? We drink Zamzam. Then what do? We do the sa'i, we go between Safa and Marwa. Historically, which one happened first? Safa and Marwa, Hajj. Then what came from Safa and Marwa? The Zamzam, the water. Then what's the next act that happened? Ibrahim built the Kaaba using the stone, the footprint that he stood on. Then what did he do after that? He did tawaf with his son Ismail. Even the acts are anti-clockwise. So it's as if you're going back in time when you perform your Umrah and you're resetting yourself and resetting time so you have an opportunity to start again. Honestly, it's incredible when you reflect on this. I've never heard anyone say that. I just sat and I reflected on it and I did my bit of reflection and I went, oh, I've got my little nugget. I got well excited. And so that's my little one. I got copyright on that one. But it's amazing. Our faith is all about this. It's about orienting, resetting, purification. If you think about it, all our Eids, it's all about forgiveness. And from a material, modern perspective, you're saying, well, I've got to keep asking for forgiveness. It's annoying, you know. My dad's always making me apologise to my sister every week. Why do I have to apologise to Allah? You know. But really what it is if you think about forgiveness, it's a resetting and a purification. Just as we detox, it's as if you're saying sorry when you detox to your body. It's like, sorry for all the chocolate bars and the neglect of my body. This is an expression of me trying to do something right, isn't it? And so our faith is all about these things. It's incredible. And so these are just some of the things that I'd like us to reflect upon for this. And so what's the upshot of all this? First of all, this is a time for us, regardless of whether we're going to Hajj or not, is to sense an opportunity for change when the motions move us into change. Like find that sort of, what do you call it when people are canoeing? They find that sort of, they find that part of the water that they can get and it takes them, isn't it? I've forgotten the term they use for that. It's as if you're trying to hunt for that and it takes you. Allah's placed that different times in the year for us, and sense that even in your life, moments when things seem to be facilitated and you get into that flow state. That's something to listen to. Allah's giving you a sign to say this is where you need to go, this is the right direction, as long as it's healthy. Then Islam is the religion of balance. So if we're ever practicing our religion where it's causing chaos and causing equilibrium, whether that be political, geopolitically, or even in our own life where we're causing chaos in our life with our relationships with others, that's not Islam. Islam is where there's this balance and it's about there's a flow and things integrate and things connect. That's very important for us in our lives as well. And things have an order for us to follow, so we have to have the right map. We have to have people that we can listen to or guide us and connect us to our religion, to give us that focus about the right way to go, and also to connect to the map of Islam. Islam for many people is just an identity. It's not really a life. It's not something that they live in their lives, but we need to recognize, as I've highlighted before, that our religion has all these things for us to guide us to success in our dunya. It's not that Islam doesn't tell us to suddenly cut ourselves off from the dunya. We have to integrate all three of them: body, mind, and spirit. And when you can integrate those three, you just become a complete human being. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to realize some of these meanings in what we've spoken about today, and to be able to get things going so we can get into that flow in our lives. And may Allah accept everything.